Hi, and welcome back to the McCall's Quilting Summer Garden Quilt-Along. I'm Laura Roberts, and I've been your hostess through our little garden journey here. And we have reached the very exciting stage of assembling the quilt center and piecing that inner border. So first, I just want to show you, this is the finished center block, and I'm really pleased with it. I'm really happy how it came out, but it doesn't touch a border, so I'm just going to move it out of our way. And as you can imagine, it's not possible for me to assemble the whole quilt here on this one space and show it to you. So what I've done is I have just sewn together at the top left corner block and the top edge block. And that's because I can then show you what happens around a corner and around an edge, but without trying to manipulate the whole big quilt top. So when you are assembling your quilt, here's what you're going to do. You're going to make 3 rows. And the top row and the bottom row both have 2 corner blocks and 1 edge block. Make sure you have the right colors in the right corners. The middle row has 2 edge blocks and 1 center block. So you're going to just join those blocks into the 3 rows and then join the 3 rows, and you have your center ready to go. All right? So once your center is sewn together, you're going to need to piece that inner border. So here is the fabric for the inner border. Okay. The borders each have 6 of the long pieces, like that, and 4 short ones. And what I'm going to show you how to do is how to piece these long ones. It's pretty obvious, and you'll probably already know how. The short ones are just flying geese. Okay, so it's just like we've been doing. I've got diagonal lines on the backs of my cream squares. And I'm just going to put them up here like that. There we go. And I'm going to just throw pins in. Oops, don't squiggle. Okay, like that. And like that. So these are the 2 pinks, the darker pink and the lighter pink. They're just really pretty little prints. So see, it's the same pattern as here and here. Really pretty. Okie doke. Now, here we go. Now remember, when you're doing this, whenever you're sewing square to rectangle, start on the edge, don't start on the point. This will just make your life easier this way. There we go. Sew that on. Again, as I've mentioned before, you're probably not using green thread like I am. One of the best threads that works on almost anything is if you get just a soft medium gray, medium to light gray, sort of a in between there. It's amazing how well gray seems to blend in with just about everything else. So if you only want to buy one color of thread, that's the one I would get. Of course, if you're making an all-white quilt or something, it would be worth investing in white. There we go. All right. So, there we go. I am just going to use my scissors and just lop both of them off at once, rather than, just doing the top layer. By the way, if you are teaching someone how to quilt, this is actually a good beginner's quilt for an adult because the piecing itself is relatively simple and it's repeated. So you can get really good at something if you do it a lot. It's better for an adult just because there are so many pieces to sew. If you aren't someone who's used to quilting, it could be overwhelming. But if they just make like one block and put a little border on it, they could have a beautiful wall hanging. So just think about this as a project. If you want to teach someone how to quilt, it's a good project for that. Okie doke. There we go. Okay. And of course, if that's something you're wanting to do, you may want to grab a kit now for your friend or your daughter or whoever you're going to be teaching before they're gone. I have no idea how long they are still there. So if you do want a kit, go to mccallsquilting.com/quiltalong. Okay, So here is my long unit, and I'm going to sew it onto the end of my strip. Now, one thing to look at is which direction those arrows are pointing, whether they're pointing in toward the quilt center or out. I cannot tell you how many times I have sewn it like that. You want to make sure you have the orientation the way you want it, okay? So it should be like that. And let's go to the other end here. Okay, so what you're going to have is 2 together that are long, and a short one, and 2 together, and a short one, and carry on like that until you have your strip completely done, okay? So once you do have your strips all done, you're going to sew the side strips on first. Now, one thing to think about, I'm going to bring the edge block closer so you can see it. Okay, this is the middle block. If you're looking at the side of the quilt, top or bottom, the edge block is, of course, the one that's in the middle. So when you want to sew on your strip, you can tell if you have it in the right place by how it's oriented versus the pieces that you already have in the quilt. So this is the one that should be the center. The very center of the block is that point. And while it doesn't really, it's not hard to put this one on because it aligns with seams already in the quilt. When we get to the big border in the next segment, it's going to be really helpful to know that that's the center, okay? The center of a side is the center of the edge block. Okay, so when it comes to sewing these on, you're going to sew your side borders on first. Oops. So this will be my little bitty side border. Okay, come here, baby. Uh-oh, I'm talking to him again. Okay, and if you look at the quilt behind me, you'll see that the arrows point in. So my arrows will be pointing in like that. Okay, so you just get that all aligned all the way down. And you do what we always do. You're going to flip it like that. And I'm going to pin. See, this is why I can't have a great, the whole quilt top up here. Can you imagine? I've got it going every which way as it is, and I've only got 2 blocks. Okay, so I'm just going to throw a couple pins in here. There are some seams to match. Okay, like right here. So I'm just going to make sure I've got that seam. I'm right-handed, so I have to put it to my right. Make sure that that's going to be right on the seam. Okay, there we go. Okay, there we go. Oops. Sit. I'm telling the fabric to sit again. How strange. I'm not going to feel bad about it. I talk to fabric, but then, of course, don't we all? Isn't that part of being a quilter? You ever walked into a quilt store and gone, oh, I love you, to a fabric? Because I have. No great surprise there. Okie doke. And of course, this would be going down the entire side of the quilt. Now, if you find when you're putting these borders on that your border is longer than your quilt center, or your quilt center is a little longer than your border, you're going to want to ease that into fit because the pieced border is the size that your center should be finishing at. Okay? Sometimes you'll just find your quilt centers a lot smaller, in which case you might want to go back and just take apart the big long seams and then sew them back together with a smaller seam allowance. That'll lengthen it out, and vice versa. Okay, let's get this put together. And I'll move that out of the way, and those guys. When you're sewing something big, have you noticed how the big things try to just take over? Like they'll move everything off your table for you, whether you want them to or not? Okay, there we go. Right there. Isn't it nice to sew a nice long seam without having to deal too much with match points? Or, you know, trying to get your points to match on 2 pieces that have a lot of ups and downs. These do have some points, but not many. I did it! I sewed over a pin. Bad me. Gosh, someday I'll really learn not to do that. But I'm just not quite there yet. I am really good though about closing my rotary cutter every single time. I hope you are too. Learning the hard way is not fun. All right, that is on. Snip and snip. Move my things around a little bit here. All because of this big honking quilt of 2 whole blocks. All right, let's bring the iron over. And I'm going to press this out. I'm going to press it out because you have so many little seams coming in here. You're just better off pressing the whole thing out. And that's what I'm going to do. I just think it's getting so pretty. This is exciting. It's exciting because I don't see, the pink patches up next to the blocks until right now. I can hold them up, but really seeing them sewn on. It's a first for me right this minute. Ooh. Oh, how pretty is that? Okay, so this is, of course, my little bitty miniature side border. So now I would put on my top and bottom borders, but there's something you have to do first. You have, your border strip that you made, and let's turn it the right way. You have your border strip, but if you look, the top and bottom borders have a little square on the corner. So I'm going to take a little square and add that to the end, both ends, of my pieced border strip. There was a time when I didn't need glasses to sew, but now I do. I just can't see things close up anymore. Which is a good thing. I have figured something out. I figured that your really close-up vision leaves just when your wrinkles arrive, which means you don't have to look at them when you look in the mirror. Ha ha. Oops. Alrighty. Well, I'm just going to press this guy open too. Just right like that. There. Now, this guy is going to go up on the top. Okay. And it's just, just like I did the last one, where I make sure I have it positioned properly and make sure my arrows are pointing in. And look at that. And then I'm just going to, I would just pin that along all the way down and sew that on. Remember, you're going to have a square on the other end too. Sew it on, flip it out. You're going to be doing that on all 4 sides, of course. And then you'll be ready for the big border. So this is a quick thing. Again, you have 3 rows, 3 blocks each, and you make your little pieced border, and you sew that on. And when we get together next time, we're going to put on that big border and talk about how to finish your quilt, about quilting and binding and all those good things. So that's all there is to it. And I hope you're having as much fun with this as I am. I'm so in love with these fabrics. I know I've talked about this, but this is just to remind you, it's the Northcott Charlotte collection. And these gorgeous, the solids are the Northcott Toscana collection. So anyway, I will see you back here next time. I hope you're having fun, and I hope you really enjoy the excitement of getting that put together. So see you next time.